we will take up the today's part of study of the Purusha Sukta. You remember that last week we asked the question, Yat Purusham Vyadaduhu, when they actually took this Virat Purusha, dismembered him in the yajna, and then what did they do with that body, with the body of the universal person? Katidha Vyakalpayan. How many ways did they use that? What did they do with each part of the primordial Purusha's body? What happened to his face? Asya Purushasya Mukham Kimasit. What happened? What happened to his thighs? Ka Uru. What happened to his feet? Pada Ukhau. So we are answering those questions. And now in the 14th mantra, not only we are talking about his limbs, but also his personality. For example, what makes a personality? Mind makes a personality. So what happened to the universal mind? What happened to his sense of seeing? Because sense of seeing are the eyes. Because once you dismember the body, then where does the mind go? Where does the it can happen even to the beings which die, because during the life they have sense of sight, they have a mind, they have emotion, they have intellect, they have got transaction, they have memory. What happens to all that? Where does it go? So as far as the individual path is concerned, there are other theories, but here we are not talking about the individual, we are talking about the universal person. So the mantra number 14 says, Chandrama manaso jataha chaksho suryo ajayata mukhadindraschagnischa pranadvayurajayata Nabhya asidhantariksham Shirshnodyau samavartata Padmyambho mirdishashrotraat Tatha lokagam akalpayan. Tatha, in that way, lokan, all these worlds, akalpayan, this primordial Purusha created. So how did he create? Manasa. What happened to his mind? From his mind, Chandrama Jataha, the moon formed. So moon is representing the universal mind. Moon also represents the individual mind. So I will in the next week's class, I will give the etymology of what moon is and how moon can be connected to the mind. Then Manasaha, from the mind, Chandrama, the moon, created. So from the Paramapurusha's, the Virat Purusha's mind, moon came. Chakshoho, from his eyes. Suryaha, the sun or the sunness. The idea called the sun, the illumination, Ajayata, that was created. Mukhat Indrascha, from his mouth, the creation, what was created was Indra. Agnischa, from the mouth, Agni also. So Indra, Agni. Pranat Vayuhu Ajayata. So from primordial life force, wind was created. And then that is prana is the cause for life. It's called Jivana Karana. The very fact that we are alive is because of that prana. So every time you breathe in, actually you are breathing in the primordial person's breath. That is how the breath enters you and the breath enlivens you, and that the breath is actually gives us life. So this is how we breathe in the universal person, and we breathe out, and then that with our breathing out, it creates grace for the entire creation. When you breathe in, you take him inside. When you breathe out, you bless the world. So this is how breathing in and breathing out takes from the universal person. Then Nabhya, from his navel, Antariksham Asit, the whole space from the earth to the end of the space, until the sky, wherever, however far, billions of miles it would go, until that time it is the middle of this universal person. Nabhya asit antariksham. Then Shirshnoho, that is actually the grammatically in Sanskrit we would say Shirasa, that is from his head. But here it is called Shirshnoho, means from his head. And it looks like there is a plural there that is in keeping with the text, because he says he has got thousands of heads. Sahasra Shirsha Purusha. So Shirshnoho, from his head came Dyauhu, the heavens. Samavartata, they happened. Padbhyam, from his feet, Bhumihi, earth, and all the realms below the earth, and from his ears, Shrotrat, Dishaha, the various directions. So we also see elsewhere, for example, in the Lagunyasa, we say, Suryo me chakshushishritaha, may Surya be in my eyes. Disho me shrotre eshritaha. So let all the directions be in my ear. So what is these directions and relationship with the ear? Purusha Sukta says the directions are actually it is of the primordial person. Then Shrotrat, from his ears came the directions. Tatha, in this way, Lokan akalpayata. So in this creation of the universe, we also see in other texts of the Veda, Tat Srishtva Tadeva Nupravishat Tadanupravishya Satchatyacha Bhavat. The primordial person, Tat Srishtva, having created the universe, Tadeva Anupravishat, he entered into this universe himself. Tat Anupravishya, having entered into the universe, Satchatyacha Bhavat, he became all existence. So that is how here the primordial Purusha is everywhere. And this is the reason why we call him as omnipresent, Sarvantaryami. So this Virat Purusha, from Veda Aham Etam Purusham Mahantam Aditya Varnantamasa Parastat Sarvani Rupani Vichitya Dhiraha Namani Kratva Bhivadan Yadaste. Yat, from that Virat Purusha, Sarvani Rupani, all the forms were created. Humans, animals, and then there are various kinds like Svedaja, Andaja, that is coming from the eggs, and so on and so forth. We will talk more about that. All of them also got created. Yat Sarvani Rupani Vichitya. It is not enough if you just create form. You must also give name. So along with form, Nama Nekratva, he also gave name. So therefore, name and form without any particular name and particular form is reality. And the Abhidharma Samuchaya, Abhidharma Buddha also says that among all the names and forms which are false, the concept called name and the concept called Rupa, form, it is real. If you try to particularize a name and particularize a form, then it is false. But name and form itself is not false. And that's also validated in the Purusha Sukta when he says that was the creation of the primordial person. Therefore, the concept called name, that is, whenever there is a form, you give it a name. Wherever there is a name, it must be associated with a form, whether it is gross or subtle. For example, thought is a name. So thought also has a form because there is a structured concept that is there in one's mind. So Abhivadan Aste. Abhivadan is a beautiful term. Abhivadan means all transactions are happening because of his presence. All communication is happening because of his presence. All recognition is happening because of his presence. All addressing is also happening because of his presence. Abhivadan means if you address something, if you recognize something, if you communicate something, if you transact with something, all of them is called Abhivadan. So all these things happen only because of his manifestation. If you recognize something, that means he has manifested in that name and form. Suppose you say, here is Ashwath. Then Ashwath has got a name and a form. And as soon as you recognize this name and form, that means he is the medium which helped you recognize me. So that's the meaning of the Abhivadan. And what does he do? Yet that having recognized all this, aste, he stays. As long as Ashwath, name and form, is in your awareness, he stays. And then let us say your attention shifts to another name and form. Then he goes there and stays. So this is also a way in which you practice the presence of Ishvara in your life constantly. Because in every experience, he is behind it. This is the meaning of Abhivadan. Yetam Mahantam, this one who is of extraordinary eminence, who is Tamasaha Parastat, who is beyond ignorance. Tamas means here ignorance. Who is beyond ignorance, who is shining similar to the sun, Aditya Varnam, this Purusham. Dhiraha Aham Veda. I, the intelligent person, understood. Makes the claim, the Rishi claims that I am intelligent. I am brilliant because I recognize this. So, Veda Aham Etam Dhiraha. So, having created all the forms, all assigning names, and then inhering in all transactions, in spite of all these things, himself unchanging, because he cannot change, himself unchanging, who is brilliant like the sun, who is beyond all ignorance, one who is Maha Mahima, that is, he is beyond all grandeur, such Virat Purusha, I, the intelligent person, discovered, says the sage. So we'll have to do a lot of work on these three mantras, because who is this Surya? What do you mean by Surya? What do you mean by Chandra? How is Chandra associated with the mind? So on and so forth. We will look at that in the course of our future classes. We'll close with Shanti Mantra.